Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we are in the shop today. We'll be working on, well, not the Corvette, but the engine for the Corvette. And what we're doing is working on the top end. As you guys saw in the previous video, we wrapped up the bottom end with the oil pump, the pan, the gaskets, the front and rear covers, all that stuff's done. But now we got to work on the top end. So that's going to be lifters, push rods, heads, and rockers. So as I talked about in the previous video, I said I was going to get a set of Johnson lifters, and yeah, so that's what I ended up picking up. I got these lifters from a buddy, Caro, at Holden Parts USA. He sells Australian parts that you can get in America for your Chevy SS and whatnot. But yeah, he had a set of lifters for sale, and these are the Johnson lifters. They are the short travel 2126 LSR. So I know I commented previously that I really wasn't interested in the 2126 because they have that extra oiling groove. But I got these at a really stupid deal, and I actually got these were brand new in box. I got these for cheaper than it would have been to buy the 2116. So instead of the 2126, it's the 2116. So, you know, gonna have to do with the oiling thing. But I actually spoke with my engine builder. You know, he's the guy that built the motor. And the oil pump that he provided with it, he said he shouldn't have any issues with it. It's a ported melting unit, and it's got the bigger spring in it, so I don't think we'll have any spring issues. And so yeah, like I said, I've had these lifters sitting in oil for the better part of today, and yeah, so should be good. Just want to make sure that they're well lubricated, and yeah, you can just go ahead and start putting them in. So the cam's all lined up, everything should be good to go. Just got to get these lifters put in the right spot, and they are the link bar, so kind of like I said, you've got to get them both lined up at the same kind of access point. And they should go in. There you go. There's the first one. So that is the install of the Johnson lifters. Pretty simple. Just make sure they're well lubricated. Now what I did do, I did actually pour a huge globs of oil out of the top of them just so it didn't make as much of a mess. We will be filling this with engine assembly lube. The lifters were soaking in motor oil, so we should be good there. But like I said, you guys can definitely see there is motor oil in there, and yeah, we should be good. So actually, a bunch of oil right there. I will clean that up. Not that it's going to hurt anything, but yeah, so that's pretty much going to be it for the lifter install. And as you guys can see, we do have our LS9 head gaskets on here. We do have the passenger side head on. The reason I went ahead and decided to do the passenger side head, I'll be honest, I just wanted to figure out how to do the studs because I wasn't quite sure how the studs and all that was going to work. So what we're going to show you today is putting this driver's side of the engine back together, but we're going to be measuring for two things. One is going to be piston to valve clearance. The second is going to be our push rods. So the first thing I did was I cleaned the deck of the block. I just used brake cleaner and a rag because there's a bunch of oil on there. You don't want to get that on your head gasket. Then you'll see these inserts right here, these little spacers. Those actually came from Tick Performance, and you need to use them with the 1/2-inch head gasket, so basically your LS9 head gasket. So what I did was I took a socket, I stuck it inside the hole, and I just smacked it with a hammer, that one down there, a rubber mallet. Smacked it with air until it sounded solid and stopped making any noise. and that basically got our little dowels installed in the block. So we did that on the front and back, put the head gasket on, and this is the GM head gasket. The part number for the LS9 gasket is 12622033. And yeah, so it's just a GM head gasket, nothing too exotic. And kind of like I said in the past videos, we want to take full advantage of the GM LS9 head gasket, so that's why we did the 1/2-inch studs. All right, so like I said, we're gonna do multiple steps all at once. Basically what we want to do is actually take the LS9 head gasket back off, because I want to spray this down with WD-40. We don't want these to stick to the cylinder head when we close a valve on it. We do want it to stay stuck to the piston. So like I said, so let's go ahead, get this LS9 gasket off, and we'll be able to spray that down. And yeah, so we're ready to put our cylinder head on. And guys, this is going to be temporary. We are taking this back off. So basically, you just want to put your cylinder head on here, line it up with those dowels that we put in, and you should be good to go. So. The studs, we are not going to be installing all of them. As a matter of fact, I'm really only going to install the studs for this front cylinder number 1. And the reason we're going to do that is because A, I don't want to compress the gasket any more than we have to. I'm actually not even going to tighten these down. And B, you just want to make sure that you do have something holding the cylinder head down to the motor, because you want your measurements to be accurate. So alright guys, here is comp part number 7702-1. If you guys can read that, that does say 6.8 to 7.8. We should land somewhere around the 7.4. I'm assuming that's the stock GM pushrod length. And yeah, so this is from Comp Cams. It is adjustable. So you basically put one end on the lifter, the other on the rocker, and you expand it until it stops spinning. So, and what I'm talking about is lash is where it's the up and down motion, not the side to side. A little bit of side to side is fine, but you basically will put this in there and tighten it down until it stops moving. So that's the push rod, and like I said, we'll put this on the exhaust side first, and then you need to put the rockers on. And as you guys can see, I bought the Comp Cams shaft mounted rocker system, and the reason I went with this is because I actually have perfectly fine rockers, but I decided one of those kind of like, while we're in there, we might as well do upgraded rocker arms as well. There's a flat and then there's a round. I think we're going to put the round side in the GM piece. The top is going to be the flat piece where the bolt goes. And yeah, so we basically just have to line all these up and make sure everything is correct. So yeah, a little bit of flipping things around, but that's all right. All right guys, so we've put the push rod in on the exhaust port. I've made sure it's sitting in the cup. I had the push rod trying to fly off there for a second. But basically what we're going to be looking for is we're going to be spinning the motor over up until we feel the exhaust port start to close. And when the exhaust port starts to close, the intake port should be on its base circle. So, all right guys, you'll notice I switched back to the factory rockers. And that's just because that linked set is just going to be a total pain in the butt to have to measure every single push rod in this motor. So torque the rocker arm to 22 foot-pounds, and yeah, it's like I was saying, basically I'm just going to spin this until this push rod stops rocking back and forth. So alright guys, well, I got sick of trying to adjust this stupid thing, because the examples I saw online was like, oh, just you can adjust it in the bore and you're able to twist. Guys, all I was doing was twisting the whole damn thing. So what I did was I took a stock push rod, stuck it in here. I haven't torqued it down all the way, but look, stock push rod is too short, which is real interesting. So actually that kind of makes sense with the short throw lifters. So I know we're going to be at least 7.4. Maybe we will be approaching the 7.8. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm going to set this to 7.4. Maybe I'll set it to 7.5 and then just go it like that. I think we're just going to have to do the old school way of stick it in, measure, stick it in, measure. All right, guys, so I just counted out 15.5 turns on the adjustable push rod. You guys can see we have a little bit of movement back to forth, side to side, but we have no movement going this way. And so yeah, I'm just gonna do, cylinder 1, intake, 15.5 turns. So if you take 15.5 times that by 0.05, so that's 0.775. Add that to your plus 6.8. So you're roughly going to be 7.575 inches for the intake first push rod. Now obviously we have to measure all of them, but I just wanted to get a base figure. But while we have the push rod in here, I still need to spin the motor over and see our piston to valve clearance. All right, guys, I just turned the motor around. The intake closed twice. We're good to go. All right, I got this lined up now. When the intake starts to close, that's when the exhaust is on base circle. So I'm actually gonna leave the exhaust. I'm gonna turn that out to 15.5, just like we have on the intake on cylinder number 1. And see where we go, because I honestly don't know how this is gonna start. So what I've been doing, I've been resetting this thing every time I touch it because you just want it to be consistent. So I'm gonna spin this out 15.5 times, put the exhaust rocker back on the cylinder and see if it's tight. I measured out to 15.5 just like the intake, and guys, this almost seems perfect. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take it off, turn it to 16. If it's too tight, we'll turn it back down to 15.5. That is measuring push rods with the Johnson lifters. So what we're trying to do is turn the motor over and get an impression on that silly putty for the exhaust stroke. Haven't heard anything hit. I think we're good. Turn it over one more time. And yeah, there you go. I think we have a country mile on clearance because I don't even see an impression on either of the valves hitting this. I mean, yeah, we're nowhere near. Not that I thought that we were, but maybe it did a little bit right here. It's okay, so this top part was on the piston going against the head, so that would be smashed a little bit, but this section right here, we'll measure that out real quick. I mean, that's 0.16. Yeah, I mean, that's plenty of clearance on here. So, all right, guys, I have gotten all of the studs installed. You can see them. There's no hardware on the studs, but they are all installed. And basically what they tell you to do in the instructions is to clean both sides of the washer. So I'm just gonna go get some brake clean and scrub both sides of these washers, put them on. And then I'm also gonna clean the bottom side of the nuts as well. I know we do end up putting just the Ultra Torque lube on here, but it is kind of gummy from the factory from ARP. So just give these a quick bath in brake cleaner, scrub them off a little bit, and then we'll be ready to actually put these in. We've got all the studs in, I've got all the washers in. Like I said, I just cleaned them off real good. Now we need to put the bolts on. It is a 9/16 hex socket, it's 12 point. I happen to have one of those. So basically the instructions for the nuts are put assembly lube, the Ultra Torque on the bottom of the nut and on the threads as well. So you kind of want to overdo it so that, you know, you don't need to be cheap here, put a lot on, because they really want that on the threads on the bottom of the nut and the top of the washer. So go ahead, do that off camera because I'll be here for a while just getting super messy. Following the torque specs, we're gonna do this in 3 stages. We're gonna do it in 25, 50, and 70 foot-pounds. That's the instructions from ARP. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Alright guys, so we got the bottom torqued. What I need to do now is actually take the top bolts and clean them just like we did the other ones. So studs screw in, you got to clean the nuts, and then you got to clean the washers as well. So alright guys, the top row torques down to 28 foot-pounds, and this will complete our torque spec. But now what I'm going to do is actually measure all of the push rods. We already showed that on camera. I'm not going to bore you guys with that, but I will measure out all the push rods because, like I said, these Johnson short travel lifters, apparently there might be some variation in them. I'll show you what the final numbers are. And I'm actually going to start over. I know we said like 15.5 and 16 for this first cylinder. I'm going to start over just because the cylinder head is finally installed, and yeah, so I probably just spent about 2 hours measuring all the push rods, and this is what we ended up with. You guys will notice that the intake and exhaust was 15.5 through every cylinder, each, you know, the driver's side and passenger side, so it's 15.5 turns throughout. So the quick math is this: you got each turn is 0.05, so 15.5 times 0.05 is equal to 0.775. That push rod tool is 6.8 inches in length. Add the 0.775 inch to that. That gets you to your total of 0 lash, 7.75 inches. Now, the Johnson lifters call for 0.030 of preload. So, 7.57 plus that preload, 0.030 is equal to 7.605. So I really need to order one push rod for all 8 cylinders, so 16 of these, at 7.605 inches in length. All right guys, so that was a ton of work. I've been out here since like 5 o'clock. It's now 10:30, so I've been out here all night. But you know, I wanted to get this done because I need to get these push rods ordered. So as you guys just saw, we got both cylinder heads mounted to the engine. We have checked the piston to valve clearance. We should be good there. I did the push rod measurement for every cylinder, intake and exhaust. Again, 15.5 turns on the 6.80 tool, measuring tool. So I'm actually going to order those push rods through Tick Performance. I get a little bit of a discount because I joined that teamtick sponsorship deal, discount, whatever you guys want to call that. So I'm going to order that, save a little bit of money there, and yeah. So I don't know how long that's going to take. It might take a week, it might take 2 weeks, I'm just not sure. So my plan for the next video is to actually get this engine back in the car. The input bearing should be here tomorrow. I could put the engine mounts on, put the clutch on, and we should be able to send it and put the block in the car. Now, what I'm going to leave the valve train off because honestly, guys, there's no point of putting that in if we've still got to wait for the push rod. So I'm going to seal up the motor by putting the valve covers on, putting tape over the intake. Guys, I do not want to repeat performance of what we did, about a month ago. So yeah, definitely don't want anything in the motor, and we want to keep everything as clean and organized as possible. So we'll get the engine back in the car and go from there. And so yeah, that's gonna be about it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more content like this, especially getting the engine back in the car, getting those push rods in, all that stuff, Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. And if you guys want to help support the channel, check out the links down below. I'll give you some links to all the tools that we used today, the push rod length measuring tool, the helper springs that we actually didn't end up using, but I did buy a set, and gaskets and all that stuff. So check out those links down below, and also make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com, because any contribution you guys can make there goes right back into the channel, this motor, the car, the garage, you know, anything and everything. So thanks guys, have a great one.